Hello, avid readers, book nerds, and casual observers, and welcome to the Read Along brought to you by the Lit Round Table. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Anna, and today we're talking about, not that book, we're talking about The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This week we are going through chapters 29, which is Nobility, through
The Remarkable
32.
Talents of Brother Longfoot.
Yes. So, 4 chapters this week. Short session.
Mm-hmm. This is part 7, right? Of this?
Correct.
Nice.
Yes.
Love it.
So I think that means we've only got 3 left, I think. I could be wrong, but...
So we're starting to wind down.
Yeah.
We're getting into the thick of it now.
Which is kind of sad, because I feel like we finally...
Finally plot.
Are getting it. But that's okay.
I've heard, though, that that's the general, on, the fantasy, subreddit and, the writing subreddit. I think it's generally agreed upon that this first book is a lot of setup and that the next books in the series have a lot more plot and payoff stuff. So
interesting. Well, we'll see how this one ends. I don't know if I will continue this series or not. I'm not feeling as strongly about it as some of the other books that we've read.
That's fair. That's okay.
Yeah. We'll see, though. We could get to the end of this one and I'll be like, oh my gosh, what a cliffhanger. And just have to keep going.
We will see. Yeah. Anyway, so the first chapter, Nobility, we had Jezal.
Good old Jezal. This dude.
I know we had a comment on our YouTube video for this, and I think the person who commented was like, Jezal's canceled.
I could not agree more. Full support of that movement.
Yeah, what was the problematic thing he said in this chapter? There definitely was one. Do you remember what it was? I remember having emotion when I read it, and I should have written it down.
I took pretty detailed notes, so let's see. Well, let's just go through the chapter because we'll get to it, I think. Because anytime he talks, I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude. It starts out with him looking at himself in the mirror.
Yeah, this is what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Just looking at himself in the mirror, admiring himself and his favorite feature of himself, which is his jawline.
I just can't even. It's like, isn't that like a Greek mythology thing where someone was looking at their own reflection in a pond and they starved to death or something? Didn't that happen?
Yes. Well, it's a
narcissist or something.
Yes, exactly.
And that's where narcissist comes from. He's a narcissist.
He totally is. 100%. Yes. Yeah. And his favorite part of his day is looking in his mirror.
And his dad sent him a shiny new mirror. It's so pretty.
What?
He is so self-obsessed.
Is he? It is bizarre.
It's maddening. It's so maddening.
Yeah. I can't say that I was surprised.
Oh, no.
I made a note of it and was just like, and then my note next to that, my commentary was just LOL. Of course.
Oh my gosh. But while he's looking in the mirror, though, admiring his chiseled jawline, he gets a little note slipped under his door saying, "Meet me at a statue," right? I forget which statue, of Herod the Great, I think, or something. And it's from A. The letter A.
Yes.
So he's like, oh, there's only one person that could be. It's your girl, Artie West. And then he immediately feels conflicted because he promised his best buddy, Major West, that he would leave his sister alone.
Which he has been doing.
He has been.
Points for that.
But I think, as we'll see later, now that he's the one that is seemingly being pursued, I think that his willpower will drop to 0.
Yeah, pretty clearly. Yes.
So, anyway, after that whole thing, he actually lets, he kind of puts up a front, of having everything together and having nerves of steel, but he is shaking in his boots at the beginning of this fencing tournament.
Yeah, it's the day of the contest, or the first day of the contest, because I think it's multiple. And he is a little bundle of nerves.
Yeah.
And he can't remember if he has his swords.
Yeah.
and they're in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
He asks where they are like 3 times, I think, before he even starts fighting. Yeah.
Reminds
But
me of like me before public speaking class. Like,
yes.
where's my notes? Oh, they're right here. Okay.
Am I going to throw up? Maybe. But he had nothing to worry about. He won his first round, like pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I don't know that we need to go into. There's that whole section was fairly long, but the
Yeah, like
summation of it is that he won.
I would say it was very skilled writing. Like the way that Abercrombie wrote the fencing match was very well done. It this was the longest chapter in this chunk, I think, but it zoomed by.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of action. But you know, it's kind of boring to just talk about the action scene because nothing, like
Right.
you said, nothing. Like we did actually see his main opponent, which he's trying to work to fighting, and that was that Dan Gorst guy, and he's like a big brawny ox of a man apparently.
Yeah.
So we did get a glimpse of him. We haven't seen him fight yet in this chapter anyway, and yeah, he beats his first opponent very easily, and he like not even low key, he like high key bullies him. He's like,
Yeah, he's like, did you even practice?
yeah, do you even lift, bro? Is like, he's
Yeah.
like, you're already winded. Wow, I haven't even broke a sweat. And
Well,
then
it's
at
like,
the
yeah, go ahead.
and then it was just like at the end, he was basically like, not my fault that you're crap. Like,
Right. Yeah. And it's pretty clear that this person was like not, because I guess these are like chosen from different villages. Was that the impression you got?
yeah, they were like
So
selected, and yeah,
so
they're all supposed to be good.
from their region, but I suppose depending on like their region, they have varying skill levels, obviously.
Right.
So
Right. So after the fencing match, we do see him like have this mental struggle of, do I go meet with Artie or do I not? And
right.
it's funny, like he like decides in his head, no, we're not going to do it. And then he just goes anyway.
Right. Well, so he ends up going out to like get drinks with his like company.
Oh, right. That does happen first.
The only reason I'm bringing it up is because he makes a point of defending West after West leaves, because everyone's like, he shouldn't be the one that's going up north. It should be you, Jezal, because you're the better fighter. Blah blah blah. And he's like, you're kidding, right? And he actually like, this was the one moment where I'm like, oh, Jezal is actually like not a total idiot.
Mm-hmm. He stands up for his friends.
He stands up for West, and he's like, he's a better soldier than any of us. So what are you talking about? Which I appreciated. So he does have some genuine respect for West.
Right.
And yeah, but then once it comes to Artie, he's just ridiculous.
Loses all willpower.
Yeah. And according to Jezal, men and women can't be friends. He can't just be a friend with Artie. There's more to it. There has to be more to it. I just think it's stupid.
That's not toxic at all.
No. And like while he's walking to not meet with her, but meet with her, he's like once again embarrassed by her lack of nobility, and he's concerned about hurting Artie's reputation, because if they hook up, then she's gonna be soiled goods. And
he actually, but he even said, he just admitted his reputation would be completely fine, but hers would be ruined. So it's like, I hate society because that's just like real life. But
yeah,
but
only the women bear the consequences.
Yeah, right. But and at the end of this at the end of this whole what's the word, like internal rant about, how can this happen? Like, it would never work. He's like, maybe, what if I got married to like an actual noblewoman, and Artie and I could still like meet up for like trysts and
Mm-hmm.
basically was like, I'll just make her my mistress instead, and she'll be the one that I actually enjoy being with, but I'll have
Right.
like this fake marriage
Surely
for
they'll both be fine with that.
yeah, because Anna, she would only be so lucky if
Right.
he would pitch that idea to her. You know,
What was
she
I
should
thinking?
she should count her lucky stars that this Jezal guy is just really looking out for her reputation, you know, and that
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's such a catch.
he's just a stand-up guy, you know.
Uh, yeah. But then he
Anyway,
gets to the statue and he
hmm
doesn't see her right away. And then she sneaks up on him and she seduces the heck out of him.
yep, yep,
But then she leaves him wanting more, which I was like, good job.
yeah, playing him like a fiddle, which honestly kind of makes me think back on our original theory where she's just playing him for something, and that she's like not
Hmm.
actually interested in him. The fact that she was like, oh no, no, I guess maybe next time you should show up earlier. Like, I wonder if every time there's going to be some kind of excuse and she's just kind of like stringing him along for some reason. Like, if she is messing with him and not actually interested, I guess we'll see. But I'm just saying that could still be a theory. I don't know what her goal would be, but I'm assuming that would be revealed if and when um, she came out and said, haha, I've been messing with you this whole time.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
I was paid by the Dan Gorst guy to
To
throw you
get
off your
inside your
game.
head.
Yeah, to play mind games with you. I bet you she breaks his heart right before he faces Dan Gorst, and then he'll lose, and
Ooh.
then Dan Gorst like gives her a bag of coins or something. Oh, wouldn't that be crazy?
I actually love this for Artie.
Yeah, that'd be
I kind of hope
diabolical.
it happens because Jezal does not deserve her.
No,
He doesn't really deserve anyone.
he has
He's
a lot of
awful.
work to do on himself before
Ugh,
he should be in any relationship.
so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah. Anyway,
Um,
that could happen. I could see that happening. But I guess
yeah,
we'll see. We'll see if her feelings are genuine later on.
interesting.
Read and find out.
Yeah, we will too.
Yeah. So I think that's it for that chapter, right? It pretty much
Yep.
just ends with that. So the next one is Dark Work, which is pretty. It's a dark one.
It really is. We're back with Dogman, which before we even get into the contents of this chapter, we both struggled with this one. So, like, I was trying to listen to it and do some sewing, and I was like dozing off, so I had to stop. And you had the same thing.
Well, I was also trying to read it at midnight.
Right. I mean, we were both reading it in the evening, but I just thought that was really interesting. And I was trying to figure out why that would be other than that we were both tired. But I think that because Dogman is not a common POV, it's harder to feel connected to what's happening in the chapters
Yeah.
if you're distracted at all. Because then when I went back and re-listened to it the next day, I was like, oh, that was like kind of some important business. I'm glad I re-listened to that. And it was a pretty intense chapter, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
the stuff that was happening was like, I mean, not fun, but
No,
it shouldn't have been boring.
no,
But I think you hit the
no.
nail on the head with like we're just not super connected with this POV character because we've only had him one other time, right?
Right? Yeah.
So
And he has like a whole group of people that all have strange names that are
I,
hard to keep track of.
I'm having a hard time keeping track of who is who.
Yeah,
I will except for uh the weak guy, the what's his it's an F name. Fenway some
maybe.
I don't know.
The only name I can remember is Three Trees because I'm like, that's a dumb name.
Yeah,
But I don't remember anything else about him other than that's his name.
right.
So off the top of my head.
And Dogman, because Dogman is the POV character.
Right. Yes.
But anyway, yeah, Dogman smells.
I don't want to talk about this chapter.
I'll talk about this one,
Okay, thanks.
so you don't have to. Dogman smells a burning house, and he talks about like how experienced he is at smelling things, and like the
Hence
smell.
his name?
Yeah, the smell of a burning house is pretty distinct. So he shows up, sees that this farm, who is like clearly owned by like impoverished people, was burned down, and he's trying to figure out who the heck did this. So he goes back to his group. They're arguing about stuff. He berates them for arguing and drawing attention to themselves.
Right, because they're being loud.
Yeah. And they basically decide, we're going to go find the people that burned down this farm, and we're going to show them, we're going to give them the old 1-2.
Yeah. I do want to interject here because I think it was really interesting how he said there's a house that's burned down, and everyone was automatically like, oh, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Like that, we can't allow that.
Especially since it was a farm. It's like farms are vital to any society's food supply.
Right. But you wouldn't think that like a group of
hardened
renegades, like what are they doing? We don't know what they're doing. They're out in the world doing something. But you wouldn't think that they would have such a visceral reaction to like a random, seemingly random fire.
Right. I think it's almost more so kind of like the Pharaoh character, which we don't get her this week, but you said she's the first POV for next week, but
yeah.
She has a very strong sense of justice and almost like a code that she follows. And maybe that's a similar case with these guys where, you know, they have their own ideals and like what they think is just and what they think is unjust. And burning the farm of innocent people and killing them, I guess.
Well, they don't know that they've been killed yet.
Oh, right. But that's a no-no for this group. They do have a bit of a moral compass, which I think is why later on they kind of feel bad about some of the stuff they have to do. But
yeah,
or I wouldn't say have to do. They think that they have to do. So
yes, we'll get there.
They find a group of bandits, ruffians.
Well, they go back to the house and discover that whoever set the farm on fire had actually hanged the occupants of the farm. So it's like an old man, a younger woman who's probably his daughter, and her 2 kids. And all of them are like disgusted by this, rightly so. But they're like, who would kill kids? Who would do that? Yeah. And one of them is like, well, so and so, you've done that. And he was like, no, I never killed kids. They always go free, and I've only ever killed because I was ordered to do so, or whatever. So yeah, they clearly have a code that they're following. And then carry on.
And then they go out and they try to find the people responsible for this, which for this group, seems like it was easy enough for them to do.
Well, even Dogman commented, like, these people aren't trying to cover their trails at all.
Yeah.
They're not trying to be...
And we find out that the reason for that, why they don't really care about stealth, is because they're just... they're tax collectors.
They're tax collectors who were told you can do whatever you want if they won't pay their taxes.
Yeah. So they were running a legitimate operation, according to this King Bethad guy. So yeah. They take out this group until there's only 2 of them left. There's like a younger, practically just a boy, you know, and this older guy who, I forget his name, but he apparently has a bit of a reputation with this group. Like, they know who he is, and he knows who they are, and he panics when...
He thought they were all dead.
Yeah. And he panics when he realizes who they are. And one of them says, like, oh, I've been thinking about you for a while, and look at that, now you're right here in front of me. Oh, look, and now you're completely in my hands and at my mercy. So it's like, this guy is like a no-good person who they've like wanted to, like they had a score to settle with this person for a while, apparently, and now they have the opportunity to do it. But before they axe the guy, literally, they get some information out of him, because now they didn't know that the North was going to war with the Union.
Not only that, they didn't know that the North had a king, because apparently that's not a thing.
That's true. Yeah, well, I think they probably knew that that's what Beth had wanted. They didn't know that he had already succeeded. Like, they listed off the names of people that they thought would have resisted that, and he's like, they're all dead.
Right.
They died resisting, and now we're invading the Union.
With a king.
Yeah, and we have a king now. And I'm a tax collector, and he told me that I could do whatever I wanted to these people if they didn't pay.
which was fun, not funny. But the Dogman's group's reaction to that was taxes. Why are we doing taxes? Are we trying to be the union? What is
Yeah.
this? This is garbage.
They're like, that's a very Southern idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. But this dude just gets an axe to the face, and
The back of the head, I think. I
no,
don't
that's the
think.
next one. This one,
Oh,
this
was
one
it?
was this
Oh,
one,
you're
this
right.
one was just straight on because they didn't care about looking this guy in the eye when he died. The
You're
next one,
right.
however, where it's just the boy who is like not even very old, is like, guys, I was just doing what I was told. What was I supposed to do? I didn't like that they killed those kids. I didn't like it, but I was just following orders. And what was I supposed to do? If I would have said no, they would have killed me. Like, I'm a victim here. This isn't fair. What, are you going to kill me? And they're like, well, we can't let you go because you're going to tell people that we were here and we want people to think that we're dead for a while longer still. And, um, like, we can't let you go. And we can't take you with us because that's just another mouth to feed and you are not going to be any good in a fight. So I guess we have a conundrum here. And he was like, that's not fair. That's not fair. And they were like, nope, you're right. It's not. And then he gets hit in the back of the head with an axe,
Yeah.
because they, well, Dogman says it's because the person who did the swinging didn't want to look the kid in the face when it happened, which I guess fair. So yeah, it was dark. It was a dark moment. I felt
Yeah.
icky.
It really did. And they feel guilty about it. Like they
Hmm.
don't like that they did it, but they did do it. So,
I mean, I understand the thought process of we can't let him go, we can't bring him with. Um, I was hoping for a we'll just bring him with, and if he can't, if he's not able to feed himself and he starves, then that's on him.
yeah.
Instead of just at least give him a fighting chance, though, instead of just nope, axe to the head. You know,
Yeah.
but like I get, it's just one of those situations where it's just awful. There's no
Yeah.
right there is no right answer.
Well,
So they
I
chose
mean, there is a right answer. They could have not killed him. That would have been the right answer.
well
But
for I mean they didn't perceive there to be a right answer.
yeah.
So they went with the self-preservation route because they are those Northmen are harsh. um, yeah. So that was dark work, but they learned a
Yeah.
lot about the state of the North and their war with the Union. So now they're heading south still, and they know now that there's going to be a lot of fighting in the direction that they're going.
Yeah.
So
We also learned that they do fancy themselves to be on some kind of mission, though we don't really know what that mission is, right?
I think they're just moving south just because they don't like it up north anymore. That was the impression I got.
Well, and they kept saying that they're named men. That came up several times throughout the chapter.
I
And I don't
interpret
know
I,
if
I
does
in-
that mean that they're like fugitives?
yeah, I interpreted that to mean that they're like branded enemies of Method. Like they're named as traitors. That's what I interpreted that to mean, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a different thing, but
Yeah, I don't know.
maybe we'll find out later. But
Because they don't seem to be using their real names. You can't tell me that their parents named them these dumb names.
no, I just like how Logan's name isn't actually Nine Fingers.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Which the old man asked about Logan Nine Fingers when he realized who they were. And they were like, yeah, no, he's not with us.
yep.
Because they think he's dead.
Yeah.
But
So anyway, that's dark work, which it was dark.
yeah, not a fan.
It was
Not a fan of
definitely
that
dark.
chapter.
But the next one I found entertaining because
Entertaining and super interesting.
yes, words and dust, and we get Glokta. Yeah, your turn. You talk about this one.
Okay, so we see more of the championship. And Glokta, like this chapter starts with the championship. Glokta's watching, and he wins his bet on one of the fights. I don't remember which fight it was, but
Well, that's the one-
he bet on the presumed underdog. or what people thought would be the underdog.
Right. Well, that's the guy. That's the guy
Oh,
that
is it?
Yeah, Dan Gorst. That's the guy that Jezal is gonna end up fighting and who he's been training to
But
fight
then why didn't everyone vote or like put money on him?
because he looks big and dumb and yeah,
Well, he did really well.
yeah. He's deceptively fast.
Yes, and Glokta like walked away like, as Glokta would. And then he goes to the universities. And I, like, when I was first reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, he's going against what Salt said. And he's actually looking into the universities. But not so. He is trying to prove that there's a scientific reason
Yeah.
or explanation for the explosion
Yep.
in Baez's rooms.
I thought that was hilarious.
It was so funny. So he asks these scholars, like, and they're all like the most quirky, eccentric old dudes. It was very well done, I thought. A little stereotypical of like what you would expect in an ancient university, but funny and well written. And they're all like saying what their specialties are or whatever, and he's finally just like, who would know about explosions? And this one guy's like, ooh, that's me. That's all me.
That's chemistry.
Yes. He leads Glokta to his lab, and he like shows him this powder that he's been working with that is explosive. And he demonstrates it, and it's like a little of an explosion. And Glokta's like, it's very underwhelming.
And very smelly and smoky.
And very smelly. And he goes, well, so how much of it would it take to like create a big explosion? Or could you create a big explosion? The guy's like, well, I suppose you could, but it would take barrels of powder to create a large explosion to go through like
a wall.
Stone wall.
Yeah.
And it'd be very expensive, and it would be an export and blah, blah, or an import and blah, 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 all this stuff. And Glokta's finally like, well, okay, that probably wasn't it. So then he goes back and asks them all, what do you guys know about magic? And they all laugh at him. And they're like, magic? Magic isn't real. We're scholars. What are you talking about?
This is like the antithesis of Hogwarts. Like this is the anti-Hogwarts. They're
For sure.
Hoity-toity. Oh, science.
And he goes, well, okay, fine. Who would know about like magic, like of the past? And so they lead him to a historian who he meets with. And this is where it gets really interesting because this historian talks about Baez a lot and like goes into details about things that Baez did. Also, we find out that Baez is the first letter in an ancient alphabet. So it's like the alpha.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, but it's also this guy's name, which I was like, oh, well, that's an illusion for you. And Glokta finally asks, well, did Baez exist? And the historian is offended because of course he existed.
He's like, did you ever have a tutor? Did anyone teach you history?
Right.
You dumb.
Where were you? And he was like, well, I was more into like fencing and whatever.
Girls.
And he goes, yeah. And he's like, well, I never cared for that stuff much myself. I really love the historian.
And Glokta was like, yeah, I don't really too much either.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Obviously, because Glokta has got some issues. And then there's a lot of history stuff here, so my notes aren't super detailed because it was a lot. But I have noted that Baez broke the long table, and that impressed the ancient King Herod, which is interesting because King Herod was the statue.
Herod the Great.
And then they talked a lot about the Maker and the Maker's daughter, and they searched for the seed.
Right.
It's all a very bad retelling, but it's like he's like going over old mythology. But then they find a parchment, which is where some of this is detailed. They don't find it. The old guy has it. He can't read part of it because it's got like damage.
It's missing. It's one of 3.
Yeah.
The other 2 were lost forever.
Yeah. And as he's reading, he's like, something about the Maker's daughter. Meh. They search for the seed. They eventually locked the Maker's daughter, or someone, the Maker and the Maker's daughter, in the tower, which is apparently a tower that everybody knows about and nobody has the key for.
Yeah, like it's been mentioned,
yeah,
like just as a landmark.
Right. But the best part is that, at least in the audiobook, he like tells all this stuff and then like there's a pause of some sort, and then the historian goes, and Bias took the key. Like says it almost as an afterthought. And Glokta's like, wait, say that again? Oh, yeah, and Bias took the key. And he goes, this is where I will prove that this is not Bias. The imposter is not Bias, because he will not have a key to the tower.
Yep.
And so he takes the scroll, and the historian's like, you can't have that. You can't have that. What are you doing?
It's a relic.
Glokta's like, you just try and stop me, old man.
Yeah. He was like, that'll be quite the show, won't it? My crippled self versus your old feeble self rolling around on the floor over an ancient scroll.
Yeah. I think that this is the most fun Glokta chapter we have had so far. Mm-hmm. Like, I loved this chapter. I want more of this.
Fascinating, because I feel like this was definitely the biggest, if not also the only, like, big exposition dump.
But you know what, though? I feel like we've like needed this history for most of the book. And so it was like, finally, now I kind of have a better understanding of the lay of the land.
Which is interesting, because most of the time when you get these big exposition dumps, the reader is like, oh, here we go. Sitting in history class. Yes, tell me more, Elrond, about
okay.
about whatever. But in this one, they waited so long to do it. Joe Abercrombie waited so long to give it to us that we were like thirsty for it. Like, I was like, yes,
seriously,
please
though,
give me something that I can like form this world in my mind with. Like, I need to know like something about the past here. And so we learned that like Mitterland or whatever it was a bunch of tiny kingdoms, and then Bayaz came in and like instructed the king on like how to unite them into the union, and he was basically like the king's chief advisor. So that matches up with what Bayaz said, and he was like, "Oh, I gave these people this stupid union, and they don't even know who I am now. Don't get any respect around here."
Yeah, no, so, it totally makes sense. Like once we learned everything he did, we were like, oh. Yeah. I would also be annoyed if people didn't remember all this stuff.
I forgot. I was going to interject with something earlier, and I forgot what it was. I think, the historian guy also had a crow.
Yes.
Like a pet crow. And he like kind of gave me some Odin vibes because he had a pet crow.
And the crow was also super distraught about Glokta, like, taking the scroll.
Yeah, he had a crow. I was more under the impression that the Maker was, like, a god figure. And they made it sound like the Maker was a flesh and blood person that just existed, and that they were, like, responsible for, building the place. Which I guess could give them the title of Maker, but when someone says, I don't know, like C-3PO style, thank the Maker, I think of it more of like creator of Earth. So that threw me.
Which is funny, because I'm pretty sure C-3PO literally means the manufacturer.
Yeah.
Of his person. Which is funny when you know that it's actually Anakin.
Anakin is C-3PO's god.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Oh no.
I also was like confused I'm a little confused about religion here and like what their stance is on gods and all that.
Because in the Gurkle place, like the Empire down south, they clearly believe in what, like, they just say God. and people that don't believe in God are inferior and not even real humans to them.
According to Pharaoh, yes. And probably others, I would assume.
Yeah, I have a feeling that's a popular belief down there. So yeah, and then the Union seems to be more like science-y. And
Right.
the North is just like, I gotta survive.
Yeah.
But also they seem a little more magic-y because they've got like this sorceress from the true North, you know.
Well, and Baez too. And even like even before Logan gets to Baez, he's also got like
He's talking to spirits.
magical things happening.
He's like
around
swallowing fire and stuff and like spitting it out at
him. Yeah.
people. Haven't seen that come up again. I forgot about that till just
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But yeah, wouldn't that? Oh,
but
I want Logan to meet these university professor dudes,
Me too.
so he can be
Me
like, I
too.
talk to ghosts.
Yeah. And they'll be like,
Excuse
Okay.
you.
But I'm very curious about the significance of the Maker's daughter and searching for the seed.
Right.
Because
like,
what
what's
does that
about?
mean?
What is that? I hope we find out. That seems like a weird drop thing. Like that seems like a weird thing to drop on us if we don't get any kind of payoff with that. So I'm sure we will. I wonder if Baez is
Right.
there to open the tower.
Maybe. I mean, maybe.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for the Glokta chapter.
There's a lot. There's a lot that went
was
on
a
in
lot.
that one.
Hopefully my summary wasn't too like much, I guess. Anyway.
No.
So then 32 was the remarkable talents of Brother Longfoot.
Which I like Longfoot because it sounds like a hobbit name.
It is. It might actually be a hobbit name.
That's
Well,
Proudfoot.
Proudfoot.
Proud feet.
And Long Bottom Leaf.
Yeah.
So this is our Logan chapter. Kind of an odd... okay. Here are my questions.
Okay.
So the chapter starts, and Logan is in his rooms, or he's in like the suite that they're all staying in.
Yes, the one with the big hole in it.
Yes. And now there's this random person who I thought was going to be the ghost or vampire or whatever it is
Right.
revisiting, but it wasn't. It's this little man
Yeah.
who is super chatty, and we find out that he's good with languages. He's a navigator from like the name of his group is like navigator something. And he's come to visit Baez because Baez sent for him. And then Baez reveals that we're collecting a group of travelers to go west with. So my question is, what is that about?
Yeah. What
What are we doing?
Yeah. I think Baez needs to spill the beans a little bit here on like what the plan is because Logan has been pretty much just along for the ride. He doesn't know what the plan is. And he's like, and this Longfoot guy is going out to try to get them a ship. For cheap.
Yes.
Fast and
Baez
cheap.
Sends Logan with him, which turns out to have been smart. Although, if Logan hadn't gone with him, I don't know if it would have become an issue. But
Maybe he might have it still might have had issues. But really quick, the voice that I've pictured for this Longfoot guy, he's like the caterpillar guy from the VeggieTales Jonah.
yes, and oh my gosh, yes, and also that is what the narrator has chosen to do with the voice.
Really? Okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
He sounds like Indian, like an Indian dude?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was picturing. I love that because that is I love when it matches up with my headcanon. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's very endearing.
He's very fun. I like him a lot.
I do too. I'm excited for him and Kwai to like be hanging out together because I think they're going to be a good combo.
I want Longfoot to tell Kwai what his remarkable talents are so that Kwai doesn't feel so wordless because I feel like he just gets constantly beaten down by Baez.
It's true. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Brother Longfoot is very funny because his whole spiel is like, I've been blessed by God and I have many talents, many, many blessings. And pretty much has proven that that's true until they're walking to get the ship and Logan is thinking about maybe stepping into
A brothel.
a brothel because it's been a long time, as he says again. And Brother Longfoot has the coin purse, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we should have enough for that." And he starts rummaging around noisily in the coin purse.
They're in a back alley, and he pulls out a big coin purse full of enough money to like purchase passage on a ship for multiple people, and people start looking at him, huh? Interesting, and they start sauntering over, and one of them's like, "Hey, that coin purse looks a little big for you. Maybe we should carry it for you."
And Logan's like, you shouldn't be doing that right now. And he's like, no, it's fine. He goes, no, seriously. And then everything goes crazy.
Yeah. Then there's insert action sequence here where Logan disarms and beats up one of them and convinces the other ones to bounce. But he does give them the money that he was going to spend in the brothel. He's like, here, take this. This is what we can afford to let go of.
Yeah.
And they decide to leave, which is probably good for them because I don't see that ending well for them.
No, definitely not. And the whole time, Brother Longfoot has stayed like right behind Logan. Mm-hmm. Like his little shadow.
He's like, I've been blessed with many remarkable talents, and fighting is not one of them.
Yep.
But he does say multiple times in this chapter that he's a navigator, and that he's like there are very few countries that exist on the world that he hasn't been to. He's their trip advisor.
Basically.
He's
really good with languages. Because when he first meets Logan, he's speaking the Northman language, whatever that is, right? And then Logan's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And he tells me, he's like, "Oh, you speak. I would have guessed you were from the North. You speak it so well." And he was like, "Oh no, I've only been there like once."
Yeah.
Didn't like it very much.
It was a harsh environment.
Yeah. And but he is fluent in language. There was a quote in this chapter, just as the fighting's going, because Logan is taking the fighting very seriously, even though it seems like it would just be a brawl. But his comment is, "It's a fool who thinks any fight can't be his last." And I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. You should talk to Jezal."
Oh, I didn't think about that. That might be foreshadowing, people. Oh boy, Jezal might have a bad time with his fight. Yeah. That's true. That's very realist. That's true in real life. I think people like especially people that get into like scuffles at school and stuff, I think don't realize just how much damage a punch to the face can do.
Sure.
Especially if someone falls down and hits their head on some kind of sharp corner of some piece of furniture, right. And it's like you throw one punch and then you're manslaughter. You're in prison now.
Right. Like one unprotected punch to the head region, and even like getting punched in the chest can be really dangerous. Yeah. So, not that I have any.
No, I've never been in a fight ever.
Either.
But that's something that I've heard from people who are fighting, like experts and stuff. It's like people don't realize how deadly like back alley fights and like barroom fights can be. Because in movies they're like smashing bottles over people's heads, and people are like taking punches in the face left and right, and they're just like, "Oh, my jaw hurts a little bit." It's like no, like actual.
No, wipe it off.
Yeah, spit out a tooth and walk off like it's nothing. It's like you just spit out a tooth.
Yeah, no, anytime I see fight scenes like that in movies, I'm like, wow, if that were me, I would have taken one hit and been like, "I'm really sorry, please don't do it again." If I was still standing. It would be instant tears and just like, "I'm so sorry." Just a big baby.
Yeah. But. Anyway, yeah, so don't get in fights, guys. That's the moral. And Logan agrees. Or at least take all fights seriously and don't take the opponent for granted. So we'll see if Jezal... I have a feeling Jezal will not adhere to that. sage wisdom
No.
in his fight, which maybe we'll get to in the next section. Because that's pretty much it for this one.
Yep.
What were your any big final takeaways you want to mention before we talk about what's next?
Jezal's still the worst. I
Yep.
actually liked Glokta quite a bit in this section. And I'm excited to see Brother Longfoot some more. Those are my takeaways.
We got one exposition dump, and I want more.
Same.
So I want Bayaz to spill the beans on what their plan is, what their objective is here, and I want to know what the deal is with Artie. Is she gonna backstab Jezal? And yeah, I'm just excited to see what we'll learn in the next section. But
Okay, I do have one more thing. We mentioned the info dump again, and I'm wondering. I kind of would like there to be a study done, or to do the study, on people who love the Lord of the Rings and are like Tolkien enthusiasts. If those people enjoy info dumps more. Not that Tolkien is like... It's just that his style of writing allows for more info dumping. And
Yeah.
because it was the first... Like, The Lord of the Rings is really the first book in that genre like itself. That it's more permissible because it's older and writing styles change.
And the way he writes, like his version of English is a little different from ours. Because he wrote these, like, just his vocabulary, you know. So
Vocabulary is different. He's also British, so that's different. He's a philologist, which is someone who studies language.
It can be more difficult for a layman like we ourselves are from America in this modern day. Like, I have a hard time recommending Fellowship of the Ring to people if they're like a new fantasy fan. It's like, it's important reading just to understand where the genre came from. I don't think I would ever recommend it as someone's first fantasy book, or even The Hobbit. I would probably point them to something a little more modern. I mean, The Hobbit you can maybe get away with, but
yeah, I don't have a problem recommending The Hobbit.
Yeah.
If I do recommend The Lord of the Rings, it always comes with a caveat of also the Fellowship is really tough. But once you get through the Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King, great.
Yeah.
Easier reading. But my point is that I'm wondering if you and I are like struggling not knowing the history of this world because we're so used to and enjoy books that go really heavy on the history.
I do love a really fleshed out world building experience, but maybe we'll get it eventually. So
yeah, and so also you mentioned the way Tolkien wrote was different. Yes, and also the Lord of the Rings is written in third person omniscient, which is almost never done anymore because it's hard to do.
Yeah,
and hard to read. Honestly,
it makes it read like an epic tale. You know that you would. It makes it seem almost like an oral history kind of thing, which I mean makes sense because it's supposed to be Bilbo writing it. You know, so
right. Well, and Tolkien's intention was that it would be like a mythology.
Right. So it makes sense.
It does. It totally does. Anyway, that's a whole lot of getting off the
That
main
could be
point
its own
here.
podcast topic later on.
It really could. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You can cut it out or leave it in. I don't care.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so for next week, we're going to read Her Kind Fight Everything to The House of the Maker.
Ooh.
Dang.
But we're not going to actually read it. We're just going to
But
get
don't
to
actually
it
read that chapter. Just get to it.
and then stop.
Yeah. That's annoying. You know what?
Oh,
I've got a feeling that this book is going to end right where I'm like, oh.
Super invested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
We'll
got a
see.
feeling. But, so, that's for next week.
Alrighty. Sounds good.
Or not next week, but next
Next
time we have a read along.
reading. Yeah.
Speaking of, next week, the main podcast is going to be back. February 2nd.
Yes, when you're listening to this, yes, that will be the case. I panicked for a second and I was like, oh, we don't have that recorded yet on it. But yes,
No.
when you're
This
listening
comes
to
out
this,
first.
yes.
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 Yep, February 2nd.
And I believe
Main
we're going
podcast,
to be talking about the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which is the title of the Amazon Lord of the Rings show that just got released. So yeah,
excited.
we're going to be talking all about that and about what that series may contain content-wise. So
Theories
pumped.
abound.
So
So,
yeah, but until then, happy reading.
and we'll talk at you next time.
Later.
Bye.